All right, everybody, we're back in interesting transition. As you know, they have me rapid fire here these days with all these candidates. And one of the candidates I have a tremendous respect for is Mr. Warren Mosler, who's running for governor of the Virgin Islands. To start this off, Warren, if you could pull yourself up there a little bit. I know you're sending a message to yourself. Anyway,
somebody in one of the neighborhoods after you.
One of the things I'd like to say before we start, you and I generally are on the same page, particularly with our projections and our estimations of what is going to happen. And this particular issue with ArcLight, which I did support, however, you can condemn me for that, but you've got folks that are running for public office, and you've made some strong statements on this issue. Bring me up to speed, and it is my understanding with our conversation out there, you were watching or you saw the hearings in front of the Finance Committee, and again, discussions of delays with reference to receiving money, which you called them same-day loans anyway. Talk to me a little bit about your thoughts, again, in the last couple of days since we have, you're all right.
Okay.
Just speak to it.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
What I started to explain a few weeks ago after the vote was that no meant yes, and yes meant maybe.
Right.
Okay, and what I mean by that...
How about a lie is not a lie?
No, but what I mean by that is,
Yes.
if they had voted no, then ArcLight would still be bound by the 2015 contract.
Correct.
Which had a 2020 drop dead date.
Right.
If they're not refining oil, they have to scrap the refinery.
Right, and 17-point-something% of the...
Full taxes.
Right, everything.
And they were already proceeding to avoid having to scrap the refinery, which could cost billions. I'm not sure how much it costs.
Right.
You could break even maybe selling the scrap steel or something like that, but there's a lot more to it. And so, and then you don't have the asset to use, it's gone. So they didn't want to do that. So they were moving full speed ahead to refine under the contract. They testified they spent $44 million and had hundreds of people working on it. So it was already in progress.
Sure.
Okay. So with the yes vote, with the new contract, that drop dead date to refine and scrap the refinery got pushed out 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it gave them room to not refine,
Right.
to delay the whole refining process. So that's why I said yes meant maybe. If you vote no, then they have to start refining. If you vote yes, then they don't have to anymore. Now they have an opening. Okay.
So you had the controls in the old contract that were there, locked and loaded.
Right. Now there were a lot of other problems with the old contract. We can go back to the young days when
Sure.
I went and talked to the governor about something I had worked out with the head of Wvvi at the time. Mm-hmm. And I went with the president of the Senate and we presented it, and he liked it. It would save us more $60 million a year on our WAPA bills because they would be producing electricity at the time immediately for us on St. Croix, and they had already had the propane facilities. We wouldn't have had to spend the $220 million to build those, and it was more centralized, and they had generators that were slightly more efficient than ours, and it would also have saved them a lot of money with the storage terminal they wanted to operate, which we told them they can't do, which we wound up telling our client you can do. Okay, and so. So anyway, that fell apart a couple of weeks later. No one knows why the governor changed his mind and said you have to either refine oil or sell it to someone who would. And so the ArcLight deal came along.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw the ArcLight deal, the closing was something over $300 million. And we got $220 million, I believe, and the other creditors got the rest. And I'm looking at it, and I go, they have no standing for anything. How did they get anything out of this?
Mm-hmm.
And when I went through some of the details with some of the legal people I knew, they had made some mistakes. That they didn't have legal. They didn't realize they didn't have any legal standing. And,
Sure.
and they should have gotten the whole thing. Now, what's interesting is, at the time, Wvvi, or Hess, was controlled by a company called Elliott and Associates, which was run by Paul Singer in New York, and he had a 10% interest, which was a controlling interest at the time. He had the votes. And Paul Singer was my client for 30 years. And the last thing Paul wanted was me on the other side of that trade, I guarantee you. But I went to the governor again. I said, look, I know these people. I know what to do.
Sure.
But they didn't want to have anything to do with it. And so we've got a situation where, like one of my ads says, like Ray Fonseca, my running mate says in the ads, we are swimming in a sea of sharks.
Uh-huh.
Okay. It's the era of finance, big finance.
Yeah, go ahead.
And we're up against some of the very best, like Paul Singer, when it comes to these types of things. And we have no chance. It's like going up against a professional boxer when you saw a few boxing matches or went to a Holiday Inn Express or something like that. You just don't have any chance, where even your own consultants are motivated by their fees and not necessarily in your best interest. And if you hadn't seen these things before, you're just at a major disadvantage. So I've been working on these in finance since 1973. I've had these types of people like working for me. I've made my money interacting with people like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and people all over the world.
Right.
On that side, like the let's say most problematic people in the world were the ones that those are the people I was interfacing with.
Sure.
And that's how I made my money off of them.
Right. And so
now I see that. Yeah, now I see them making, people who were a cut below what we were doing, making money off of us here in the Virgin Islands. And it's again, as a matter of conscience, I'm offering again to help. I'll send an email later to Governor Knapp saying, look, it's not too late. This ArcLight deal, there's still things we can do. Maybe we can work together now. It's just, I hate to see this happen to us, because the wheels are coming off right now.
Yep.
You saw Senator Roach yesterday testifying that, yes, they did get together, Lime Tree and the governor. They lied to us. They deceived us. He missed the idea that this closing was contingent upon them getting financing.
Sure.
But not knowing that that's always a possibility with these kinds of things. These are the types of questions you need to ask.
Right.
They're not going to be in a contract. They paid untold dollars for consultants to help them. Not one of them would pick that up.
Right.
And they'll go to me and they'll say, well, we hired these consultants. What can you do for me? It's like, okay.
Well, let me just say, this is not
the GERS too, okay?
Right.
The GERS
Absolutely.
got these consultants, and I'm out having discussions with the largest pension funds in the world.
Sure.
It's Ontario Teachers Retirement Fund with $200 billion, and FedEx, and those types of people. And then they started telling me that, we've hired our consultants. We know how it works. It's like, okay.
Let me just add something to this.
Yeah.
I'm trying to take you back in your line of thinking, again, with the ArcLight deal, and even prior to that, our arrangements, that we've always been kind of at the bad end of the deal.
Yeah.
You're now governor of the Virgin Islands, and at the time that this started, we can even go back to the previous governor, because obviously, again, the refinery closed. Knowing the culture of thinking, and I'm going to be completely straight when I talk about this, because I've been in the Senate for 6 terms. How do you change the mold? And what would you have done, again, knowing that you probably would not have done this, offered all of these pay raises and all of the stuff that is supposed to get somebody elected?
Yeah.
Facing a community where you and I can agree that the biggest problem we have here is poverty.
Yeah.
We got folks that are working for government that are part of the working poor. And how do you go through, one, the transaction, knowing the political pressures on you, because obviously if you did a good job, we would want you to get reelected. How would you approach this issue with the realities of what's going on around you? And the Cat 5 hurricane.
Our problem is government employees are making, most of them, about half of what they should be making.
Correct.
So this small pay raise is just a baby step in the right direction.
Sure.
They need their pay doubled. But we don't have the funds to make those payments.
Right.
So I have a full economic agenda laid out.
Right.
I've had it laid out for a long time on how to bring up the average income to stateside levels, which is approximately double what it is now. It's not just government employees.
Well, what I'm saying, Warren, now, and I'm not trying to be cute with you, because I've listened to you, and I really like what you're saying. Yeah. But where we're at now, as a result of some of the things that you've outlined have gone on in the past, now it's the reality time. We're right where we are. This thing came in front of the legislature. You're asking and saying there is time for us to either turn it around or salvage whatever we have. What do you do when you have a history of us doing this all the time? And in this particular case, along with the two Cat 5s, we're collapsed. People don't know it, but we are collapsed. And now you're applying, again, what would you call the paddles on the patient?
Yeah.
And you're trying to revolve the patient. So
what's the question?
The question is, no, I'm making a statement as well as a question. Now you're there.
Yeah.
The mistakes have been made.
Yeah.
Now what do? And get elected and convince the public that there is a chance to turn this thing around.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to be the guy that people might want to shoot the messenger.
And that's possible. But the first thing is, as soon as I get in there, we will know the real numbers. Right now, we don't know what the real numbers are.
Right.
Nobody knows how much money is coming in next month and how much we need to meet payroll. I suspect we need that $70 million to meet payroll. And if we don't get that by November 1st, there could be a missed payroll before the election.
Right.
Okay, but I could be wrong. I don't have the numbers. I just have what.
Well, I think they're worse than you think they are. But however, I will agree with you. We will miss a payroll if they do not get that money in.
Yeah, and then if they do, we just bought 2 months. That's all.
Right.
And yet, interestingly enough, that $70 million is not earmarked for payroll.
Right.
Right.
So are we now saying that we're going to take the $70 million that's supposed to be used for other purposes for payroll?
You bet that then everybody else, whether it's WAPA, whether it's DRS, will suffer for it. And again, we're right back to the same pattern of kicking the can down the road and whistling by the graveyard. And
Now,
Warren is absolutely right.
If you listen carefully to the governor, we have hundreds and hundreds of unfilled positions in government.
Right.
Payroll might be shrinking due to that.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a lot of people leaving government. We had people leave because they got to their 9 years for pension contributions, and if they don't leave, if they leave now, they can get their money back. If they don't, they can't, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and they're not able to hire anybody new to replace the normal retirements and everything else. We may be backing into being able to make payroll because the government is been diminished by so much. And I just talked to somebody from the Department of Health.
Yes.
And somebody was there from the federal government, and they said there was something about disease control, and they were here because it takes 40 people to get this job done in the territory, and we only had 5.
Yeah.
And so they were here helping from the federal government. Well,
Sure.
How many other departments are down that much in staff?
Sure.
And you go to the neighborhoods, we go out walking in the neighborhoods, we've lost a lot of people also.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, there's absolutely no way to get the real numbers now for me to give you a definitive answer of what I'm going to do the first day. But
Right.
what will happen is everyone will know the actual numbers, and there won't be anyone who'll be able to do any better with what we have. I know
Sure.
that because that's what I do. Okay, I've specialized in this type of thing for a long time, and we'll get by, and we have a bright future if we
Sure.
can get reorganized. And I have a lot of ideas on how to get reorganized to make things better.
Well, we're under damage control, and if anybody sits there that understands how to handle a crisis, you do.
Let's start with the school system.
Okay, fine.
Now, I don't know if you remember what I've been saying for 4 years now, 6 years, become very applicable in the last year. Our government spends, with the federal government, I'm going to throw out a number and somebody will say it's off by, but $20,000
Yeah.
a year per student was the last number I saw that made sense. And it might be 18 or 22, I don't know. Yet our private schools,
Churchless.
the church schools, okay, they charge $6,000, $8,000, $10,000. The very most expensive is maybe Antilles and Country Day, Good Day School, whatever they call it now.
Sure. Yeah.
And taken over by
I
Australia.
think it's Good Hope Country Day.
Good Day made.
Yeah,
school.
but a good day is a good name.
Good Day School. They're charging maybe $15,000, but that's because half of the students are going under scholarship. They're not paying anything. So if you look at their average cost, if they had 500 students, they could do it on $5 million. They can do it on $10,000. And then by next year, maybe it's $11,000. We have inflation. I understand that. But so let's just look at the round numbers. We spend $20,000 to send our children to public schools, and the churches and the private schools do it for $10,000. Well, why not just fund them? Okay, number one, they've got like better education, according to all the parents working 2 jobs to keep
Sure.
their kids in the school.
And they have the teachers.
Yeah, and they get all their teachers from the public schools anyway,
Sure.
for the most part. And their classrooms are smaller, so if we fund them, we need more teachers. It creates a teacher shortage. There are no teachers who are going to get hurt.
Right.
Okay, maybe a few people on the Board of Education might object, and maybe they won't. We haven't asked them. Everybody assumes they'll object, but at some point, to me, the children come first.
Yeah.
And that point is first, the children come for everything else, and then,
Right.
oh, what does it mean for the children? Well, for this, children are all better off. And
Right.
we save, if we had a full transition, we would save $100 million a
Sure.
year.
Sure.
Okay, that's a lot more than these pay raises. Okay, that's a good move, 50% of our
Well,
structural deficit.
it's the highest funded department under the
Yeah,
executive
and we've got a
branch.
whole segment that's now pretty small,
Right.
doing it for half, and every church in the territory, 60,000 on a special
Sure.
needs. Okay,
Warren,
so-
let me be the devil's advocate.
Yeah.
I always like to do that every once in a while. Consistently, both here in the United States,
Yeah.
labor unions have always been opposed to this.
Yeah.
How do we appease these folks? Maybe what has to happen, like when Ronald Reagan appeased the controllers again.
Which union are
Somebody-
you talking about?
We're talking about the teachers union.
Well, we're creating a higher demand for teachers.
Now, answer my question, what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking you. How do you solve and ameliorate that constant
I don't
resistance?
think the teachers union would object once they saw the facts and figures and how it benefits the teachers.
Well, that's what I'm asking
Yeah.
you, and I'm not asking you all the facts and figures
Right,
at this
right, right,
point. But you're prepared to, again, explain, when this has to be implemented. Again, this idea of why it's in their best interest to do this. That's all I'm asking. Because they come out, listen, I've tried to pass bills when I was there, and let me tell you, they slam me. And when they start getting out there and marching without even knowing, you're left with your pants down, so to speak. Okay. Talk to me a little bit about, again.
Well, I've had my proposals
Yeah.
implemented, not a lot of them, but in different ways that were much, much more difficult than this.
Okay.
So, for example, my payroll tax holiday was implemented by the Obama administration back in 2010 when I was pursuing that. And it helped us by $35 million a year. It would be the only tax cut that would help us because that's the only tax we pay, the FICA taxes in
Right.
Washington. And it got to, I got on television, I got in Huffington Post, it got to Ricky, so I'm afraid I have the name wrong, but I think it's Ricky Love, which was his personal assistant, got to President Obama, he liked it.
Yes.
And I wanted to eliminate FICA tax entirely, but they only dropped it by 2% out of the 15.6, which is still substantial, which helped the economy by maybe 1% of GDP and actually saved the presidency because the economy was falling apart before
Yeah.
that. Okay, and then they let it expire 2 years later. But this turned out to be the only legislation passed during the Obama administration on a bipartisan basis.
Sure.
Okay, there weren't any others. And that's the proposal. So all my proposals are benefit everybody, and they get passed. The other one was in Argentina in 2001, where they passed they called it the Jefes de Lugar. It was a proposal. This is after they went down in flames with 32 dead in the street in Buenos Aires. Floated the peso, and I said, you need to offer a job to anybody willing and able to work at a minimum wage job to promote the transition from unemployment to the private sector.
Sure.
The private sector will not hire people who are not working. They want to see that they're working. Then they will hire them, and your economy will prosper. Daniel Kozar was there in the labor ministry. He had gone to the University of Missouri in Kansas City and studied my proposal. He implemented it. It got limited to head of households instead of everyone, but they got 2 million people in this program. They paid them half the minimum wage.
Sure.
We interviewed these people. Would you rather work or just stay home and get the money?
Sure.
Every one of them said we'd rather work. Within 2 years, half of them, 1 million people, had transitioned into the private sector. The population there is only 35 million. It was the strongest economy in the world until Daniel left and politics took over, and they dropped the program, much like the FICA tax got raised, which ended that economic experience. Anyway, so these things can be done. I didn't have a vote in Argentina. I didn't have a vote in Congress, but they got passed. So if you've got proposals that make sense to all sides, it's not impossible for them to get through. And I think this is one that is highly probable of getting through because it just makes so much sense to everybody. We had a rally at Home Depot. We had 400 people, all with tears in their eyes, wanting to see all the, because this makes all the private schools free.
Sure.
And everybody wants their children to get in based on merit and not money.
Yes.
Right now, you only go to school if your family has the money
Right.
to go to private schools. Well, that's against every value we have. This way, that advantage is taken away, and you get in on merit. And if you have 3 or 4 children, and one of them
Sure.
is very smart and one of them is not so smart, every parent I talk to, the most important thing is to give the smart kid a chance to move ahead. They want this. They don't want that talent wasted.
Right.
Yes, they want the one who's having trouble to be propped up, but more important is they want their top children to get ahead. And this just fits every value we have. So I'm very confident that it would get through, and it saves us $100 million.
Well, let me say, I got to
Who
take a
wants to
break
spend
at this
$100 million
point.
on something that doesn't work?
You're now being very practical. I understand.
Exactly.
What I want to
Practical's
say
a good
is,
word.
if you can convince the powers to be in Washington to follow your lead on some of these issues you just talked about, you certainly can do it down here, because right now there are no other choices. I mean, nobody's thinking out of the box. You are. And matter of fact, a lot of your folks that you're running against are constantly complimenting you, which is
Good to hear.
unusual. So let's you and I take a break. When we come back, we're going to have to do a transition. Obviously, it's a challenge for me here. And again, you're invited next week to come in, but we'll make a quick break.
Okay.
And then you can tell everybody out there why they should vote for you.
For number 7, by the way.
Oh, Lucky 7.
Lucky 7.
Oh, my God.
Roll with Warren and Ray.
Lucky 7.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in a minute. You're on Caribbean Country 93.5. All right, and we are back, and we're going through the drill, and this is a guest that I always enjoy interviewing you and interviewing him. He just remarkable regarding his background and his ability, and of course, as I said off the air, it's getting to the point where, the old approaches we've had are not working, and you are certainly refreshing, and I advise all of you out there, listen up closely. I'm not supposed to be endorsing anybody, but when you hear somebody that makes sense and is truly a success story in himself, you got to strongly consider that. Warren, some closing thoughts with reference to why they should vote for you, other than you articulating yourself like you have in the last 3 or 4 interviews.
So I'm running for just one reason, and that is a matter of conscience. It's like if you see somebody drowning and you're a good swimmer, you might offer to help.
Right.
Okay, and just as a matter of conscience, if you did and let the person drown, you just can't sleep with yourself at night.
Mm-hmm.
And if they choose somebody else to go in, and at least you made a good faith effort to offer.
Right.
And, my conscience is clear and I can sleep at night. So I've run 3 times before with my proposals on what we could do, and people have voted for someone else, and I respect that. I go back and live my normal life here, which isn't so bad. And I can sleep at night knowing that I've offered. I've offered to work with the governors. They haven't accepted it, so things didn't work out, but I offered, so I'm okay with that. So I'm just compelled to offer to help. So if you look at my website, Mosler4Governor with the number 4.com, MoslerForGovernor.com, I have a comprehensive list of proposals. I have all of my qualifications on there, which are 45 years of professional experience. I've got my own, economic school of thought that's up there, is now considered the latest, in a succession from Marx to Keynes to Friedman to Mosler, or whatever they call it.
Right.
And I've built a ferry, which nobody thought would work. And it's out there running for $50.
Absolutely.
And by the way, if you wear one of my shirts, it's only $40. So, and you can get a shirt there. A little shameless self-promotion, but I'm not making any money on that.
Right.
And we're having if people want to talk to me personally, I'm out all the time. The next meet and greet is Friday at the Ocean View Cafe. That's at St. Croix Marine, and at 5:30.
Yep.
5:30 to 8. I'm very accessible. I've always been accessible in the community. And so I say, look, if you read my proposals, if you like what you see, vote for me. If you don't like them and you prefer to see something else, I respect that. And I don't want your vote if you don't like what I'm going to do. It's all about, it's not about getting the way I say it is, it's not about getting the job, it's about getting the job done.
Sure.
And you
It's all
don't need
about
the
doing
money.
it. I certainly don't
No.
need it. This is going to be an enormous pay cut for me.
Okay.
And I don't know how to say it. It's going to ruin my life. But
Well, it
I will
is
do
going
it.
to ruin
Look,
your
I'm a
life.
worker bee. I get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I
Well.
started with my correspondence. By 7:30, I'm not out at the bars drinking. I'm home. I go to sleep and get ready for the next day. And that's just how I'm built, and that's just what I do.
Well, I think you conjure up again. Your whole life is going through these thought processes, particularly in the area you're strongest with. And I'm just trying to figure out, getting into your head probably about 8 o'clock at night, whether you're sleeping or not.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what the heck you're thinking about things I never thought of. You know what I mean? And it's remarkable. I really enjoy interviewing you. I want to thank you for being here. You've been always a great guest, and you're always invited to come back.
Well, thanks for having me on so often, and I'll continue to serve the best I can.
And you have some great ads.
Right. And
You
we'll-
have some really good ads.
Absolutely. And what we're trying to do is wear them out with you. Okay. Sooner or later, it was like me. They used to go to the voting booth, hold their nose, and vote for Redfield. We'll be back, and again, we're going to go on with our next guest. We're on Caribbean Country 93.5.